I started my business in 2012. And truthfully, it was easy for me to work all the time because I was so excited about my work because I loved my work so much. Because after my story and my rock bottom and rising from that and changing my life, I knew that I went through that for a purpose. And I think that a lot of women like me who have been through hard things, who have committed their lives and their work revolves around creating a service or something that they wish they would have had and helping people, it's easy for us to overgive. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was overcommitting myself. At the time, I didn't realize that I just thought that I was being good at my job. Providing good service and putting people first has always been at the core of what I do. And so it wasn't until I had my first son, my first child in 2016, after 4 years of running this business that had grown, that had been successful, that had given me so much fulfillment, that I found myself 4 months into being a new mom, like in tears, sitting at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how do I be who I want to be for him, and how do I be who I want to be for these clients that are depending on me. And it was heavy, and it was a moment that I was like, I can't run my business the same way that I was running it before. And also, I'm not willing to sacrifice the quality of my service or the presence of my motherhood. And so what does that look like? And that really began my quest into what I've created today, into being able to build something that is set up for sustainability and longevity and peace and presence. And through all of the overwhelm and the stress, like figuring out solutions so that moms are not still in the same position, because whether you started your business before kids or after kids, it's not ever the same, right? Your business and this desire to create a greater impact and having that on your heart while also wanting to be a good mother makes it harder. And so one of the things that is most important is that I learned that I had to stop overcommitting myself, that it was me making those choices, and I was making those choices, out of fear of not being everything to everybody. And so I had to figure out what does business look like? What does life look like? What do I look like as a CEO mom? And what do I need to be able to be the person that I want to be when I'm in each of these roles? And this is a stretch that so many mom founders and entrepreneurs and CEOs feel, even working moms in general, right? We have a passion and a love for our work. We want to be great providers. We want to have financial freedom. And also, we want to be able to breathe, and we want to be able to sit with our kids and like not have 1,000 thoughts going on in our head about all the shit that we still have to do. And so today specifically, I want to talk about one of the things that is most important for being able to sustain and continue to grow the business without that continued like heavy feeling, the stress, the overwhelm, those cycles of burnout that are so easy to fall into. And really, it's something that it's so simple because and I almost feel silly when I record these videos or write content in general about setting boundaries, because it's something that we know, right? It's something that we are like, yes, I need to have better boundaries. But yet every single client I have ever worked with lacks boundaries while also having the awareness that they need better boundaries. And so part of me is like, Kelsey, you're just repeating stuff that people know. And then the other part of me is like, well, why am I still having to repeat this? And it's because people are not implementing this. They don't understand the importance and the ripple effect of not overcommitting yourself, of having stern and strong boundaries that you don't just set, but you actually hold. And so I think that the biggest reason why we have this awareness of, okay, I need better boundaries, right? You know that you're smart. You understand that in your business, you are giving from a place of emptiness where you are saying yes to things that you want to say no to where you are continuing to have people on your team, hold clients, do meetings at certain times, all of these things that we do because we want to provide and make sure that we keep our businesses growing and thriving and provide good service. So today we're talking about overcommitting ourselves. Today it is important for you to walk away from this fully understanding that overcommitting yourself has the opposite effect of what you want long term. I'm going to say that again. Overcommitting yourself, saying yes to things that feel like opportunities in the moment when you want to say no, and violating your own boundaries is not aligned and will not get you the result that you want. And so that's what we're diving into right now is, yes, I'm going to give you some practical tools on setting boundaries. You know how to set boundaries most likely, but you're not doing it or you're not holding to them. Why is that? Right? It's this myth of us being superwomen. It's the myth that we feel like we have to uphold playing all these parts, especially with the rise in entrepreneurship for women and mothers, is that we have the ability now. We're like, we can make a shit ton of money. We can do that from our homes. We can do anything, right? But we can do all that. But also, there's all these other things that we're still actively doing. And so, this belief that we have and that we hold in that we are only as valuable as what we produce, we are only good leaders or mothers or CEOs when we are doing what everybody else wants us to do. That belief keeps us where we are, right? The fear of making people upset, the fear of letting people down keeps us in this spin cycle, this hamster wheel of not enjoying the lives that we're working so hard to build. And that is a problem. That is a big problem that not a lot of people want to talk about. Everybody wants to showcase all the things performative of, I'm speaking on these stages. I wrote this book. I'm making X amount of dollars. Awesome. That is incredible. I'm so glad that there are women who are doing that and showing that and showing what's possible. But with that, what are the costs that you're paying? Let's be honest about that as well, right? Because every time that I travel for work, I make a conscious choice to leave my family. And so with that, I have to have boundaries in place of like, how many times am I willing to do that in a way that works for me and feels good for me? So I'm only willing to travel twice a month away from my children. That is a boundary that I've set for myself. That means when I have an influx of clients that I book out further than some coaches, that is my choice. But that is something that aligns with what is best long term, because I don't want to look back on, my kids are little, y'all. My kids are 7, 5, and 2. I don't want to look back 10 years from now and be like, man, I made a lot of money and I didn't spend any time with my kids. And that makes me emotional even like saying that, because it's really what's happening, because we feel like if we don't, we get FOMO if we don't chase these opportunities, if we don't say yes to all these people and all these things in every meeting and every coffee chat and every speaking and opportunity and this and that. And if we don't, then we'll miss out. But like, what are you actually missing? And what is most important to you? And so I really want you to understand that boundaries aren't about filtering people out. Boundaries are about creating and facilitating and living the life that you actually want to live. Boundaries are your roadmap. Boundaries are your bumpers that you rub up against, that you're like, oh, okay, that got to go back this way. Like, that is how we need to start thinking about boundaries. If we continue to think of boundaries as, ooh, that's something hard that's going to make some people mad, then we're not going to do it. And so let's get over this myth of the more that people do, the better that they are. It's very performative. It's not reality. I have been a person that has chased, spotlights and big things, and I've been on media, and I've been there, and I've had that, and I will tell you, yes, it is important. I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm saying absolutely do them, but do them at a cadence and frequency that matches the lifestyle that you want to have. Bring clients on at a frequency that doesn't overwhelm you. Set boundaries in what kind of clients that you take, when you take them, how long you take them for. These are the kinds of things that we need to evaluate, right? It's not about saying no to things. It's about us making sure that what we're saying yes to is actually for us in the season that we're in and aligned with the bigger picture. Sometimes it is, right? For me, traveling and going and seeing my clients in person, when a private client signs with me or I do a VIP day, I will travel to that client or they will travel to me and we are together in person for a full day. To me, that is aligned with my purpose because I believe in the depth of the relationship and I want to be with my people. That's also why I do retreats, because I see the transformative effects of how these women change the way that they think, the way that they lead, the way that they run their businesses, and the ripple effect of that into their families, their relationships, and themselves. That is a huge deal. And so I could do that every single day. But if I did that, at what cost, right? And so start asking yourself that question, right? Start asking yourself before you say yes to something, am I saying yes to this because I feel like it's what I should do? Am I saying yes to this because I feel like I'm going to miss out? And sometimes there are situations where you're being pushed into a greater and higher potential that you're going to have to do some things that are uncomfortable, that, do require sacrificing some of your time. But I'm telling you that the foundational pieces that matter most to you as a human, if we take the business out of it, your mental health, your physical health, your relationships, those sorts of things, if you don't prioritize them, you will be so full of regret that it's not going to be worth it. Right? So now that you understand why boundaries actually matter, and now that I've offered you some perspective to really evaluate the way that you are running your business, scheduling things in your business, saying yes to things inside and outside your business, I want to give you some practical, tactical things that will help with boundary setting, right? So first and foremost, you need to reflect on what your priorities are. I will say that as somebody who has been in business for 12 years and all 12 of those years being an entrepreneur, we think differently. And the business, it is so easy to slide the business into first place at any period of time, regardless of what I teach, how much I know. I still have to catch myself being like, oh, I almost put that before my kids, or it's just it's there and it's alive, and knowing that, we need to be really clear on what the priority is. And this can shift day to day, right? So even when I'm doing my schedule, right? So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are client focused days. My priority during my work block is being there for my clients, being the best resource and partner for them. And so understanding on a small scale and a big scale, what your priorities are and your first priority, because truly we can only have one priority. Your priority needs to be you. And so knowing if you are the priority, then you need to filter your choices through that. If traveling 8 times a month because you feel like that's what you need to do to be seen in your business is wrecking your central nervous system and making you dead to the world, and you come home and can't be a mom, or you're not even talking to your partner, is that really the best choice? Is that going to be the best choice when years from now your kids don't have childhood memories with you, or you don't have any childhood memories from them, or your partner wants to leave you because you ignored them for however many years? These are real things that are happening. So your priority is you, and understand that with your priority being you, that you need to filter things through those choices. And so when you get an opportunity, a question, anything comes in, you have to reflect back on the priority being you and what other priorities you have. The other thing that you can do when setting boundaries is you can practice the art of delay, right? A lot of times we have self-imposed urgency and reactivity as leaders. And so if we can pause, like hitting a pause button, if somebody invites you to something, I will get emails inviting me to do this stuff. I get messages, people want to do coffee chats and this and that. And I will just like not answer it or say, I'll even say like, let me check my schedule, which is usually true, right? But then that gives me some space to think like, is this aligned with a goal that I have? Is this something that I have time capacity for? Is this something that I have energetic capacity for? And so thinking through those things, you don't have to give an immediate answer. Even if you're in person and somebody's like, hey, you should come to this thing that I'm doing, you can say, I will definitely look at my schedule. Like, what is a way that I can get in contact with you? That pressure that you feel to immediately answer is usually coming from yourself. And so make sure that you evaluate that and practice that art of delay. The other thing that you can do is you can really practice like empathetic communication. A lot of times people just don't want to say no because people don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I get it. Like we, especially as women, are such people pleasers and nobody likes to make somebody mad. Woman, man, nobody likes to say something that is going to hurt somebody's feelings or make somebody mad. That's why we avoid so many uncomfortable conversations, right? And so practicing empathetic communication, just like, oh man, you must have put so much work into that event. That sounds really awesome. I can share that with a friend. I won't be able to make it. Like, so just validating people, telling people that you appreciate them thinking about you or that they have that desire to invite you to that or get to know you on a deeper level. Like, it's okay. And here's the other thing. If I'm being really honest, it's okay to hurt people's feelings. I think that like our desire to not make people upset is hurting us more than being willing to make people upset. Because I know for me, even when I've been upset, anytime that I'm upset about anything, what I have learned is that I go inward and get introspective about if somebody makes a comment, then I can go in and say, is that true, right? Is there an opportunity here for me to do better, right? So I frequently ask clients for feedback, and I'm very fortunate to have a really high retention rate, really high referral rate, and I believe that I do a really good job. But I always want to improve, and so I'm obviously always asking for feedback. Also understanding that like I don't know exactly how people want things or the way that they want it if I don't ask, right? And so if somebody gives me feedback about something they want differently, I don't take that personally. I say, this is an opportunity for growth for me. This is an opportunity to do something different, right? And so I think that it's important for us to recognize that we can look at it and be like, oh, I don't want to hurt that person's feelings, but also that can be a really selfish choice. What if instead we're like, okay, I could tell this person how I really feel about this, and that might invite them into doing things differently or growing, right? I'm sure that like all of us have been at some point on the receiving end of some sort of like cold pitch or a message that was like out of nowhere. I will write back to people because a lot of these go ignored. I will write back to people and simply say like, I prefer, getting to know people before we talk about working together. I will give them feedback and say, hey, like I see that you're putting a lot of work into like probably sending hundreds of cold outreach messages. I think that what might be a better alternative and what you might see more return from is this, right? Like I have that skill set to be able to help people, so why not offer that? So I think when people are inviting us to things or when opportunities are presenting themselves or when there's stuff coming in that like we can see ourselves possibly overcommitting or saying yes when we want to say no, let's not be so scared of telling people the truth or hurting somebody's feelings that we don't give people the growth that they might need. Another thing that you can do when setting boundaries is offering alternatives. So when somebody asks you to do something, it is very easy to say, I can't do that on Tuesday, but I have an open slot on Thursday. Right? Like when I'm scheduling things and somebody asks me, I am so quick to be like, that day doesn't work for me. I don't do meetings on Fridays. Like, I will clearly just say that up front. And I think you will find that people are generally more flexible or adaptable than you may realize. And if they aren't, they're probably not your people. Because as moms and business owners, we have to have some leeway, some stretch, some white space, some flexibility, right? So I think that you can offer alternatives in terms of time. Maybe you know somebody that's a better fit in what they're looking for, right? You know, I can't speak at that event, but contact this person. Like, that's helpful to them. Or offering alternatives, like I talked about in with empathetic communication. You can offer alternatives in the way of like, hey, it might work better if you do this. And so don't be afraid to offer that feedback, offer alternatives, say times or days don't work for you. A lot of stuff can shift when we do that way. Just like I mentioned earlier about like the frequency that I bring people into my business, it creates, you know, less capacity for me to be able to give, or like I can't bring on a bunch of clients at once because it wouldn't serve me and it also wouldn't serve them. So don't be afraid to offer those alternatives. And then last, let's start setting boundaries early on. So one of the things that I've had a lot of clients do in their businesses is provide some sort of upfront clarity via a welcome packet or some sort of like documentation of like, here's how we work with people. This is what it looks like. Here's what our boundaries are. Here's what you can expect. Because expectations and boundaries work hand in hand. And a lot of times expectations are created from things that are unsaid. And so if we're taking time to upfront say, hey, when you work with me, you know, these are the days that I take calls. This is, you know, this is where I'm talking to you outside of those calls between these hours. Understand that, you know, I'll always get back to you within 24 hours, and just kind of setting these things up front for people. Then you might find like you don't continue to get pinged with things that are outside of your scope or outside of what you want to do, right? So if I had a client that came in and they were like, "Oh, you don't have anything open for me this week. Can we meet on Friday?" I would say, "I don't do meetings on Friday, but I can do this," right? Offering an alternative. And if they're like, "Oh, well, I really need Fridays," I would say, I can't do Fridays. So what other days can you do? So I think it's like having that understanding and taking that time up front to create clarity really solves a lot of the back end problems. So those are ways that will be helpful for you to set and be able to hold boundaries. Your standards and the way that you run your business and run your household are very important. So make sure that you're taking time to kind of step up and outside of the business and say, you know, what standards are we setting? Removing any sort of scarcity or fear. If you're in a position where you are, you know, running a very established and profitable business, but you're like, okay, I've definitely buried myself with overcommitting and saying yes to too much. And I feel like I have to backtrack and it'll be too hard to get out, which is another reason like people just stay the same because they're like, I'm so buried, like, I don't even know where to start. Book a call with me and let's talk about how we can restructure the business, restructure the way that you lead so that you don't keep ending up in that position again. You can also grab my Female Founders Freedom Framework. That is a free guide that is addressing 8 different areas of the business and how to structure them correctly to promote freedom and flexibility. This is, once again, like the anchor and the core of my business has always been, how can I be the mom that I want to be and the CEO that I want to be, and being able to elevate into those roles and continually refine and get better does require that I have freedom and flexibility. And so everything is run through those filters. So I'm taking my 12 years of entrepreneurship, put that in a guide for you that is extremely helpful and goes through, has action steps, has questions, has non-negotiables in all of those areas. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you are struggling, I'm here to listen. Feel free to reach out to me on social media. You can always email us at admin@kelseykenrai.com, but definitely check out the Female Founders Freedom Framework. Grab that guide. It is free, and we will put the link on the page here below. So thanks, guys.